Here's something that will break your brain about Ghost of Yotei. The woman who slaughtered her way across an entire island to avenge her murdered family ended up forgiving the person who killed her mother. And that's not even the most devastating part of this story. By the time you finish this video, you will understand why the main character spent 16 years preparing for a revenge mission that would destroy everything she had left to lose, including the one person she thought was dead, but wasn't. I'm going to tell you the complete story of Ghost of Yotei. Every major character, every betrayal that shaped the Yotei Six, every secret the game buries in side quests and environmental storytelling, the truth about what happened on the night of the burning tree, the connection to Jin Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm going to prove to you that this entire narrative is built on a cycle of revenge so toxic that it consumed 2 generations and ended with the last surviving member of a family holding the corpse of someone she just got back. Here's what you're going to learn. The massacre that created a ghost. The 6 outlaws who ruled northern Japan through fear and fire. The brother who survived death only to die, completing his sister's mission. The enemy who became an ally. The revenge quest that was already over before it even started. And the ending that most players don't fully understand because they don't know the real story behind Lord Seaitto's fall. This is not a summary. This is the complete, unfiltered story of Ghost of Yotei, and I need you to understand something before we start. Every single event in this game, every alliance, every betrayal, every death, traces back to one moment, one night, one burning tree. And the man who ordered it burned wasn't a monster. He was a friend. Let's start with what they don't tell you in the opening. The year is 1600 and something, deep in Japan's Edo period. We're about 300 to 400 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima in a completely different era with different rules. The Tokugawa shogunate controls Japan from Edo Castle in what will one day become Tokyo. This is a time of transformation, of isolationism beginning to crack, of power consolidating in the south while the north remains wild and lawless. And in that lawless north, on an island called Izo, a young woman named Atsu is sitting by a campfire drawing names on a cloth sash. 6 names. The snake, the oni, the kitsune, the spider, the dragon, and Lord Seaitto. These are the Yotei Six, the outlaw warlords who control the north. And Atsu is going to kill every single one of them. She ties the sash around her waist, looks at a wolf companion that follows her sometimes, and begins her hunt in a small village where 4 bandits are tormenting a horse. This is where the game starts. But this is not where the story starts. The story starts 16 years earlier with a little girl on her hands and knees crying in front of a burning ginkgo tree while her mother and father lay dead and her brother is missing, presumed dead. The story starts with 6 figures standing over her while their leader, the only one without a mask, stabs her through the shoulder with a sword and pins her to that burning tree. The story starts with him calling her little wolf and telling her he's sorry it came to this. The story starts with betrayal between friends, with a clan that fell in battle, with starvation and desperation in a desertion that Lord Seaitto could never forgive. But we'll get to that. First, you need to understand what Atsu became in those 16 years between the burning tree and the moment she returned home. She became a ghost, an onryo, a vengeance spirit that the locals whisper about when bandits disappear and outposts burn. She survived that night, pulled herself free from the tree, and made it to the mainland with nothing but her father's sword, her mother's shamisen, and a rage so deep it kept her alive when she should have died a dozen times over. She ended up in Osaka working stables, then became a mercenary, then fought in the Battle of Sekigahara on the losing side as part of the peasant infantry. She learned to kill during the war. She got very, very good at it. And when the South didn't need mercenaries anymore, when she decided she was finally strong enough, she came home to Ezo to start crossing names off her list. The game opens with her killing the snake in that village, and you need to understand how this fight goes down because it establishes a pattern that will repeat with every member of the Yotei Six. She interrupts his men tormenting that horse. The villagers beg her not to get involved. She does anyway, cuts down the bandits, and confronts their boss who's sitting there full of jokes asking for a light. She gives him one. She sets the entire hut on fire. When he stumbles out laughing, when he sees the sword she's carrying, he recognizes it. He recognizes her. He calls her little wolf, the same name Seaitto used 16 years ago, and they fight. The snake is skilled and dirty, and at one point he shoots her, but her wolf companion intervenes. He gets the upper hand anyway, stabs her through the stomach, but she stabs him repeatedly in return. He dies. She should die. She doesn't. She stands up, wipes his blood off her sword onto his name on the sash, and the hunt continues. 1 down, 5 to go. Here's what the game doesn't immediately tell you. Atsu isn't just good at fighting. She's being helped by something. The locals think she's possessed by an Onryo spirit, a vengeance ghost, and they might be right. There's something driving her that goes beyond skill or determination. Every time she faces one of the Yotei Six, she has flashbacks to that night, to the trauma, and somehow she pushes through anyway. But let's talk about what she does next, because this is where the game's structure opens up and you start learning about the world Seaitto built. Atsu returns to her family homestead, has flashbacks to better times with her mother playing shamisen, then heads to an old inn to gather information. She's immediately thrown out by Seito's goons. After defeating them and granting mercy to a dying bandit who tells her there's a bounty on her head now, she meets her first allies. There's Ranaba, who was going to work for Seitto until she found out it would be forced labor without pay. There's Kojiro, a bounty hunter offering contracts on various murderers and bandits. And critically, there are men from Clan Matsumi who've been commissioned by the shogunate to end Lord Seito's grip on the north. This is important. Clan Matsumi represents the official power of the south, the shogun's reach extending into lawless territory. They want order. They want control. They want loyal soldiers, not ghosts who operate outside the system. Atsu is not loyal to anyone except her revenge. The Matsumi samurai are initially hostile, but realize they share a common enemy. An alliance forms, but it's fragile, built on mutual necessity rather than trust. Commander Wada makes it clear throughout the game that he considers Atsu a mercenary at best, an outlaw at worst, no better than the Yotei Six themselves. He's not entirely wrong. Now Atsu needs to get stronger because the snake nearly killed her even though he was drunk and overconfident. She heads up Mount Yotei looking for a certain dual katana master, and finds Hanbei, a one-armed man who used to be that master until he lost his arm. This is her father's old friend, the man who commissioned her father to forge a specific katana. Hanbei remembers Atsu. He thought she was dead. He's reluctant to train her, tells her she only survived the snake because she's stubborn and lucky, tells her she needs to strengthen her left arm to match her right if she wants to dual wield. But because she's the daughter of his old friend, because she's already killed one of the six, he agrees. The training montage is brutal, cutting bamboo with her weak arm over and over, building strength, building precision. Eventually, she cuts through 7 pieces of bamboo, receives a second sword forged by her father, and learns to cut hot coals thrown at her out of the air. She learns to use one katana against sword enemies and dual katanas against spear users, which will matter immensely when she faces Lord Seaitto, who's a master of both. Then Saito's men attack the training ground, and Hanbei recognizes them as recruits from an old fortress in Tokachi Range. Before Atsu leaves, Hanbei tries to talk her out of this path. Her mind is resolute. Revenge is all she has. Here's where the story takes its first major turn. Atsu infiltrates the fortress, sneaks through using a gap in the fence, reaches a balcony overlooking Lord Seaitto himself as he discusses recruitment problems since the snake died. They talk about this Onryo. The locals fear this ghost, having no idea she's right above them listening. Seaitto says something critical here. He says this: superstition that she's an Onryo fuels her legend, and they cannot let it grow. Atsu attempts to assassinate him. She fails. When Seaitto picks up her sword and sees the mark on it, he knows instantly this is Master Kengo's daughter. He's shocked. He thought her dead. He calls her little wolf, and it enrages her, but he's in complete control. He leads her to an open area and says something that reveals his entire philosophy. Not one lord in the north named her a samurai. The Matsumi don't want warriors like him and her. They want loyal dogs. They fight using Han-based techniques, and Atsu holds her own until an explosion interrupts them. The Matsumi have breached the fort. Seaitto escapes. Atsu passes out from the blast and is dragged to safety by Hanbei, who admits he told the Matsumi where Seaitto was because he didn't want her killed. This is the first time someone intervenes in Atsu's revenge, and she survives because of it. It won't be the last. Now she needs a new strategy. She can't face Seaitto directly yet. She needs to draw him out by killing the rest of the Yotei Six. In my playthrough, I went after the Kitsune next, and this is where the story gets complicated in the best possible way. The Kitsune is called the Fox, known as a phantom with eyes everywhere. People vanish without a trace around Tishu Ridge in the frozen north. He's called a fox demon. Everyone fears him except the master named Inamoto, who rarely leaves his mountain. Atsu travels north through frozen wilds, meets communities of Ainu people who are indigenous to Izo, and gets hired to escort some travelers to the Red Crane Inn. During a snowstorm, they're attacked by shinobi called the Ninetails. Atsu sees the Kitsune there, gets hit with a poisoned kunai, and passes out. Her wolf companion saves her life. When she wakes freezing and injured, she makes it to the Red Crane Inn, where she meets the Matsumi soldiers who mock her, and a shamisen player named Oyuki, nicknamed the Songbird of Izo. When Matsumi samurai heckle Oyuki during her performance, Atsu offers them a dance by way of a fist fight. She wins. The commander wants her executed. Oyuki intervenes, pointing out how bad it would look that his men were beaten by a lone wanderer, a woman at that. Outside, Oyuki offers to help Atsu find the Kitsune. She leads her to a shrine where the Ninetails collect offerings. They wait, some shinobi show up, and Atsu notices they're leaving strange symbols on rocks as communication. Here's the first hint that Oyuki knows too much. She's too familiar with how the Ninetails operate, how they hide things, how they communicate. Following the shinobi leads to training grounds, fights, and eventually a cipher that decodes their symbol system. Atsu also meets Master Inamoto, who teaches her the Kusarigama after she helps him fight off Ninetails. He reveals his grandson joined them and now wants to kill him. Through investigation, eavesdropping on Matsumi commanders, and infiltrating a dye house that's actually a cover for Ninetails operations, Atsu and Oyuki discover prisoners being used as test subjects for poison. They find a puzzle box that Oyuki opens using pressure points, revealing the location of a harvesting site where the Ninetails make poison from wolfsbane. They find the Kitsune there. The Matsumi attack at the same time. Atsu confronts him and they fight, but he asks her if she thinks he was the first Kitsune before hitting her with poison kunai that makes her hallucinate. Then Oyuki enters the fight using a kusarigama with expert precision and disarms him. Atsu collapses from the poison. Oyuki takes her to safety, and as Atsu hallucinates, seeing the Kitsune in black instead of white, seeing her mother being killed, she remembers something she'd forgotten. The Kitsune comforted her that night, told her to run. When Atsu recovers enough to speak, Oyuki confirms what Atsu has already realized. Oyuki is the original Kitsune. She was there the night of the burning tree. Everything clicks into place. How she knew about hiding things in shoes. How she knew the pressure points on the puzzle box. Why the new Kitsune had no idea who Atsu was. This is the moment the story fractures into something more complex than simple revenge. Oyuki tells Atsu to meet her at a graveyard when she recovers, promises to prove she's not an enemy. When they meet, Oyuki explains that the moment Seaitto put the noose around Atsu's mother's neck, she was already dead. That Oyuki wants to help kill Seaitto and the rest of the Yotei Six. She explains she was the Kitsune, but isn't anymore. When she tried to turn the Ninetails against Seaitto, he put someone new in charge, a man named Dojin. She can teach Atsu to fight like a shinobi, like the Ninetails, because those techniques were passed down through generations of her family. Atsu agrees to let her live, to abandon their fight, because Oyuki knows Seaitto better than his own sons do. The training begins. Listening to the environment to know where enemies are. Using smoke bombs for escape. Infiltrating an abandoned village where Dojun tested his poison on kidnapped settlers. And finally, resisting the effects of toxins by differentiating between reality and hallucination. After defeating Oyuki while under the influence of poison, Atsu makes a choice that defines the rest of her story. She forgives Oyuki. She sees that Oyuki is not the Kitsune anymore. She crosses the Kitsune's name off her sash. This is the first name she crosses off without killing the person who held the title. But Dojun, the new Kitsune, still needs to die to weaken Seaitto's spy network. They track him to a frozen waterfall, fight through his nine tails, and confront him together. He tries to escape. They catch him. Atsu and Oyuki both fight and kill him. When word gets back to Lord Seaitto that his spy master is dead, his sons express nervousness that someone is picking them off one by one. Now it's time to hunt the Oni. The Oni is a mad warlord obsessed with fire who holds a castle on Ishikari Plain. He killed many brave samurai. A yari master named Sensei Takahashi tried to lead a rebellion against him but was forced into hiding. Atsu travels to Ishikari Plain, and at a Matsumi checkpoint, she meets a samurai on horseback, addressed as Lord Kitamori. The checkpoint is attacked by Oni raiders who've been setting fires across the plain. Lord Kitamori and Atsu pursue them and find Matsumi samurai being burned alive. They assault the raider camp together, rescue who they can, and make camp for the night. And this is where the second major revelation hits. Lord Kitamori looks at Atsu's sword and asks where she got it. She says off a dead man. He tells her not to lie. She admits it was her father's. He tells her it's him. She doesn't recognize her own brother. Jubet. Her brother who she thought died 16 years ago on the night of the burning tree. He explains that a Matsumi patrol found him and nursed him back to health after he was shot. It took him weeks just to gain the strength to walk. And then he couldn't go back. He never went back. He's never been back to their home. But they're together now. This changes everything. Atsu is no longer alone in her revenge. Her brother, who she buried the memory of alongside their parents, is alive. He's a respected Matsumi samurai. He has a life, a purpose, a place in the world. And Atsu is about to drag him into her war. They catch up, fight more Oni raiders together, and arrive at the Matsumi camp where Commander Wada makes it clear he considers Atsu an outlaw, despite her help. Jubet gives her a tip to start her search for the Oni at a local market. Before going there, Atsu can seek out Sensei Takahashi, who trains her in the yari, the spear. He tells her about his rebellion against the Oni, how his students were captured and killed, burned alive. She promises to free the survivors held at a lumber yard. At the market, Atsu finds a bounty for Mad Goro, a treacherous raider who stole the Oni's prize musket. Bringing him in would get her close to the Oni. She tracks Goro with Jubei's help, eavesdropping in a steakhouse, following trails to a burnt village, eventually capturing him after a chase where he throws firebombs. Then Atsu and Jubei have their first disagreement. Jubei wants to take Goro to the Matsumi for information on where raiders keep prisoners. Atsu needs him to get close to the Oni. They compromise. Jubei gets 24 hours, then Atsu takes him. But when they meet under the Oni's castle, Jubei doesn't have Goro. Commander Wada refused to release him. Jubei did bring the Oni's musket though. Atsu has an idea. Use Jubei as a prisoner. Who better to bring the Oni than Clan Matsumi's golden boy? Jubei refuses at first, but when Atsu demands Mad Goro back and he can't provide him, he realizes he has no choice. They approach Ishikari Castle with Jubei as a fake prisoner. They're let in. Jubei is taken to holding cells. Atsu is brought before the Oni to collect her reward. Here's where it gets tense. When the Oni counts out her payment, Atsu spots something. Her father's sire, a katana holder. She requests it as payment instead of coin. The Oni allows it and pays her anyway, inviting her to stay for a feast. But Atsu scouts the holding cells, tries to steal keys from the jailer Connor by challenging him to a fight she wins. The Oni congratulates her but says he won't attend the feast because he eats alone. After the feast, instead of leaving, Atsu sneaks to the cells and frees Jubei. He wants to rescue all the prisoners. They agree to do it after killing the Oni. They scale the mountain to reach the keep where the Oni's quarters are. He's waiting for them. He knew something was off with Atsu. He figured it out after she asked for her father's sire as payment. The Oni grabs her, throws her out a window, and they make a desperate escape while being shot at by Oni soldiers. They barely make it out alive. And this is where the brothers' relationship starts to crack. Atsu mentions the next time they go after the Oni. Jubet has had enough. He's defied his clan, risked everything, and they didn't save anyone. The people he wanted to rescue might now be dead, all for Atsu's revenge. He tells her he doesn't know her anymore. She's a stranger to him. He leaves. This moment is critical to understanding what's about to happen. Jubei has built a life as a Matsumi samurai. He has honor, duty, a place in the world. Atsu has nothing but revenge. She's willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to cross names off that sash, including her relationship with the brother she just got back. But the story isn't done breaking them yet. Atsu infiltrates the Matsumi camp at night to reach Madgoro's cell, loosens a board in the wall, and is caught by Jubet, who's escorting her out of Ishikari Plain when the camp is suddenly attacked by Oni raiders targeting the bridge. Atsu and Jubei fight together, defending the bridge until the Oni shows up and orders his men to fire on it anyway, knocking them both into the river below. They wash ashore. The camp is deserted, survivors retreated north. And Jubei asks Atsu about something she said to the Oni during the fight, that he tried to burn her alive. She tells him the truth. They pinned her to the tree with their father's sword, and the Oni set it alight. Jubei finally understands why she can't let this go. He agrees to help her kill the Oni. They find Madgoro at a mountaintop shrine where he's claiming to be a priest now. Ronin show up wanting his bounty. They fight their way down the mountain, and Goro reveals there's a hidden mine under the castle that leads inside. Using a boat to enter the mine, scaling cliffs, they reach where prisoners are forced to work. The prisoners take up arms. Atsu, Jubei, and freed captives storm the castle together. Atsu splits off, defeats the jailer Connor, and confronts the Oni. He talks about feeling discontented, stuck building a castle for Seaitto when he was a hero on the mainland, a general. But Seaitto is his lord and he serves. They fight. The Oni wields a club and he's brutal, powerful, relentless. But Atsu has trained with every weapon master on the island. She matches him. At one point he grabs her by the throat and she rips his mask off. He throws her outside and uses his first love, fire, trying to burn her alive like he did 16 years ago. She defeats him anyway. Atsu forces him to crawl. Jubei arrives. Together, brother and sister behead the Oni. Another name crossed off the sash. But Atsu's hunt isn't over. Jubei will report to Matsumi High Command, then return to their family home for the first time since the night of the burning tree. They promise each other neither of them are alone anymore. They're wrong, but they don't know that yet. Now Atsu turns her attention to Seaitto's sons, the spider and the dragon. Back at Seaitto's fortress, the brothers discuss how the snake, Kitsune, and Oni are all dead now. The spider thinks the night of the burning tree has come back to haunt them. Seaitto dismisses superstition but knows. Clan Matsumi and this Onryo are destroying everything he built. Through more investigation, Atsu learns the brothers have a grudge against an Odachi master named Yoshida who once nearly killed the spider in battle. She seeks him out at his dojo at the base of Horosaru Falls. Yoshida refuses students at first but recognizes her sash and agrees to teach her the Odachi, a heavy beast of a weapon that requires getting used to the weight. During training, the Seaitto brothers' men attack the dojo, giving Atsu a chance to test her new skills. After defeating them, Yoshida explains what happened. At a battle where 100 Matsumi samurai fell to the brothers' guns, Yoshida waited among the wounded and nearly killed the spider with one swing of his Odachi. The brothers have dedicated themselves to ruining him ever since. Yoshida tells Atsu the brothers were last heard trading with Russians in the north. Atsu returns home and finds Jubet there. He's finally come back. They talk about the night of the burning tree, agree not to shy away from discussing it because it honors their parents' memory. Then Oyuki shows up. Jubet is shocked when Atsu tells him Oyuki is her brother, then more shocked when Oyuki says he grew up, implying she knew him as a child. The truth comes out. Oyuki was the Kitsune that night. Jubet reaches for his katana. Atsu explains what happened in Tisia Ridge, that she's forgiven Oyuki. But Jubet is furious that Atsu invited one of the Yotei Six to their home, that she's willing to sacrifice everything and everyone. Oyuki interrupts with intelligence. Seaitto and his sons are gathering forces near Oshima Coast. They're planning to attack Castle Matsumi, Jubei's home. He leaves immediately for the coast. Atsu and Oyuki follow, passing through the gatehouse to find a dying Matsumi samurai who says the spider and dragon came out of nowhere with overwhelming firepower. They find Jubei alive in a destroyed village with his men waiting ahead. The Oshima coast is a war zone. Seaitto has launched a full-scale invasion with an entire fleet. They assault Seaitto's beach forces and stop to plan their next move. Jubei starts acting reckless, out of character, then admits there's someone at the castle he cares about. His family, his daughter. Her name is Kiku. This is the third major revelation, and it recontextualizes everything about Jubei's motivations. He's not just a Matsumi samurai. He's a father protecting his daughter from the war that's coming. They wait until night, then head for the gate where they find hostages about to be executed by firing squad. Atsu grabs a musket, Jubei distracts Seaitto's men, and she shoots barrels that cause a massive explosion. Among the rescued hostages is Kiku, Jubei's young daughter who Atsu meets for the first time. She's delighted to learn she has an aunt. They head to an overlook of Oshima Coast and discuss strategy. Seaitto's siege could last months. They need to kill the spider and dragon quickly to weaken it and prevent massive loss of life. At Castle Matsumi, Atsu spends time with Kiku doing flower arranging. Kiku expresses grief and despair from what happened at the camp, says she should learn to fight because Jubei might not always be able to save her. When a settler begs for medicine for her injured husband and samurai refuse, saying soldiers need it more, Kiku convinces Atsu to help her steal some from the armory despite getting caught. Then Jubet requests Atsu's presence. The dragon has captured a lighthouse on the far side of the harbor, and he's there now. Commander Wada says it's his war, but Atsu and Jubei convince him to let Matsumi forces storm the lighthouse while Atsu goes after the dragon. The approach is brutal. Seaitto forces are heavily armed. The dragon's ship opens fire, meaning he knows he's trapped. Atsu gains access to the lighthouse, sees the dragon, and chases him up the ladders. At the top, he headbutts her, dazing her, then jumps from the lighthouse into the sea below and swims to his ship. The ship destroys the lighthouse. Atsu barely escapes. The dragon got away. But they saved prisoners and took back the lighthouse. They shift focus to the spider, hoping Oyuki found his trail. She did. The spider seized several samurai holdings during the invasion, turning one into a brothel opium den at the estate of the great Lord Tamura. He doesn't have the military value of his brother, but if they capture him, they can use him as bait to draw the dragon out. Oyuki suggests she and Atsu slip in unnoticed rather than a full assault that would send the spider into hiding. Outside the estate, Kiku shows up saying she knows Lord Tamura's estate and can help them break in. She does, leading them to the guest house where performers are getting ready. A performer there tells them the spider is putting on a show, the Night of the Burning Tree. Atsu puts on a kimono and an onryo mask, enters the performance area, and when the spider asks who she is, she gestures to her father's sword. He knows instantly this is the swordsmith's daughter. She cuts down all his men. The spider cries for help, pathetic and desperate. He says his father and brother will avenge him, tells her to get it over with. Atsu resists the urge to kill him. He's more useful alive. Oyuki has him taken to Castle Matsumi. Outside, Kiku sees Atsu covered in blood, shocked that she killed them all. Jubei is furious. The capture was supposed to be quiet. He says every time Atsu is near the Yotei Six, he doesn't recognize her. Oyuki warns that the onryo won't bring Atsu peace. They go see the spider in his cell and plan to stage a public execution to draw the dragon out and ambush him. But Kiku went to speak with the spider for some reason. The spider goads and taunts them, fully aware of the power he has as a prisoner, the value he represents. Outside, they reprimand Kiku, but Jubei realizes he can't shelter her from war forever. He should prepare her for it instead. Enlisting Atsu and Oyuki, they train Kiku, teaching her to fight, to map areas, to survive. They head up a mountain, pick mushrooms, light a fire, cook, and drink sake. Then it's time for the spider's execution. They tie him to a post, ask where they should send his corpse. He says his family has a burial ground near a shrine in Tokachi Range. Then ships appear on the horizon. Empty ships. It's a diversion. Seaitto's men are attacking a completely exposed part of the castle. The assault has begun. Seaitto and the dragon approach just as Atsu is about to leave. When Seaitto sees his son tied to a post, the humiliation registers on his face. He leaves, tells the dragon to kill Atsu. But Jubei needs Atsu's help. Kiku is in danger. This is the moment everything falls apart. Atsu, filled with rage, not wanting to lose the opportunity to kill the dragon, abandons her brother. Oyuki goes with Jubei instead. The dragon frees his brother. Atsu fights the dragon while avoiding the spider's gunfire and cannon fire from ships. Eventually, she kills him, wipes his blood on his name on the sash. Then she goes looking for Jubet, Kiku, and Oyuki. The keep is on fire. There's no sign of them anywhere. Meanwhile, the spider brings the dragon's body before Lord Seaitto. His favorite child is dead. He tells the spider he's a failure, to lay his brother to rest and go drink himself to death. Atsu goes to the temple hoping they went there. Only Kiku is there. Jubei told her to run while he and Oyuki held off Seaitto's men. The castle has fallen. Atsu explains this to Kiku and says Jubei would want her safe. They flee Oshima Coast on horseback, arriving at the family home. Atsu shows Kiku her grandparents' graves. They rest. Later Atsu wakes to Kiku shouting outside, training herself to fight, determined to get her father back and make Seaitto pay. She lashes out at Atsu for leaving Jubei, for not being there when he needed her. Atsu promises to fix this. She goes to see Hanbei on Mount Yotei, tells him what happened. He says revenge is Seaitto's weakness now. He's willing to risk his war against the Matsumi to take revenge on Atsu. Hanbei says the spider just lost the person closest to him. This makes Atsu recall what the spider said about his family's burial grounds being nearby. She heads there and waits. The spider arrives to honor his brother. Atsu confronts him, says she'll spare him if he gives her answers. Are they alive? Jubei and Oyuki? Yes, they're alive. Seaitto is holding them prisoner at his fortress. The spider isn't going to let his brother's death go unanswered. He fires on Atsu and runs. She chases him up the mountain. They fight. She defeats him again but doesn't deliver the killing blow. She crosses his name off her list anyway, stating she has a new family now. And the spider, abandoned by his father, betrayed by circumstance, makes a choice. He'll take Atsu to the fortress where Jubei and Oyuki are held. Retaliation against the father who called him a failure. Atsu returns home, tells Kiku her father is alive. Kiku apologizes for what she said. Meeting the spider at the northern ferry crossing, Atsu tells him the spider is dead, but he as a man has a chance to be something else. He says he'll go back to the mainland to find out who he is without his father. Then Atsu begins the hell of a climb up to Seaitto's fortress. Inside, Seaitto is interrogating Jubei and Oyuki, demanding to know where Atsu is. He grabs Oyuki. Jubei tells him not to touch her, revealing he's warmed to her. Seaitto says Jubei faces execution soon, and he has special plans for Oyuki. Atsu reaches the outer camp, where prisoners are mining materials for explosives. She sneaks through and spots Jubei being led to a firing squad. She hurries, prevents his execution, defeats all the guards. She tells him she doesn't care about killing Seaitto anymore. But Jubei says she can't escape this, and neither can he. Seaitto had something special planned for Oyuki. They need to save her. Fighting their way to her, they rescue Oyuki as she's about to be executed. She shares something worrying. Seaitto is not there. He's waiting for them at the place where it all began. Jubet and Atsu know immediately. They're home. They escape the fortress on horseback and eventually arrive to find Seaitto forcing Kiku to play Zeni Hajiki, the game he used to play with his own children when they were young. He thought he'd outlive them. All his children are gone now, but he won't harm Kiku. His fight is with the ghost. He orders the others to leave. Just him and Atsu now. She asks if killing her family was worth it. He replies that creatures like them cannot resist the call of revenge. Atsu burns the sash with the names of the Yotei Six on it. This signals to Seaitto that she's moved past revenge. It's only him consumed by it now. This enrages him. They fight. She taunts him, tells him his own son sold him out. Atsu gets the better of him. They switch to katanas only. Seaitto rallies and gets the upper hand. Jubet runs to save his sister. Says they'll avenge their family together. At some point, Seaitto mortally wounds Jubet. With the night of the burning tree in her mind, Atsu unleashes everything on Seaitto and defeats him. She pins him to the tree where he slowly dies an agonizing death, the same tree where he pinned her 16 years ago. Jubet experiences the same slow death, passing away with his sister and daughter next to him. Atsu tells him, Kiku will never be alone. For a moment she sees Kiku as herself, embraces her, promises she's there for her. 6 months later, Atsu and Kiku pick mushrooms in a spot where Atsu and Jubet used to forage as children. Kiku mentions the Matsumi are rebuilding the castle now that Seaitto is gone. People still leave offerings for the Onryo, hoping she'll hunt down what's left of Clan Seaitto. They return home. Oyuki has come to visit. Atsu lays a flower at Jubei's grave. Oyuki teaches Kiku to play shamisen. The wolf that accompanied Atsu during her hunt arrives. Atsu thanks the wolf but says her hunt is over. The wolf leaves. The game ends. But the story doesn't end there. Because we haven't talked about what created the Yotei Six in the first place. We haven't talked about the night of the burning tree from the perspective of the people who caused it. And we haven't talked about the connection to Jin Sakai and what happened 300 years before any of this began. Those answers change everything you just learned. Let me show you what the game hides. The game hides the most devastating parts of this story in side quests, environmental storytelling, and flashbacks you can easily miss. And what it reveals is that the night of the burning tree wasn't just a revenge killing. It was the culmination of a friendship destroyed, a clan annihilated, and a cycle of betrayal that goes back decades before Atsu was even born. Let me tell you what really happened. Let me tell you who these 6 people were before they became monsters. Start with Lord Seaitto. His real story begins at the Battle of Nagashino, where the daimyo Oda Nobunaga defeated the Takeda clan, who lost most of their men. Clan Seaitto fought in that battle, and they were destroyed. Not just defeated, annihilated. After the fall of Clan Seaitto, the survivors resorted to raiding villages because they were starving, and this is the critical detail the game buries. Seaito's 2 boys were with the clan during this time, as was his very young daughter Fumi, who was just learning to walk. Many died of starvation, including young Fumi. Seaito's wife took her own life shortly after. So when Seaitto talks about thinking he'd outlive his children, when he plays Zeni Hajiki with Kiku and mentions he used to play it with his own children when they were young, he's talking about ghosts. He already buried one child and watched his wife die from despair. The spider and dragon are all he has left of a family that was destroyed by war and starvation. And here's where Master Kingo enters the story. Kingo was a member of Clan Seaitto before it fell. He was their master swordsmith, and Seaitto was not just his lord. They were friends. Close friends. The kind of friendship built over years of loyalty and shared purpose. But when Clan Seaitto fell, when they were reduced to starving raiders watching children die, Kingo made a choice. He deserted. He abandoned the clan. And he didn't just leave, he convinced others to do the same. This is what Seaitto can never forgive. Not the desertion itself, but that Kengo took others with him. That he looked at Seaitto's starving, broken clan and decided they weren't worth staying for. That he left Seaitto with his dying daughter and suicidal wife and built himself a beautiful new life with a loving family while Seaitto watched everything he loved turn to ash. The revenge Seaitto takes isn't random cruelty. It's surgical, symbolic, specifically designed to make Kengo feel what Seaitto felt. You lose your family. You watch them die. You survive it knowing you could have prevented it if you'd made different choices. But we're not done with the Yotei Six yet. Each of them has a story that explains how they ended up standing around that burning tree. Let's talk about the snake. His real name was Yokoharu, and he was well known around opium dens on the mainland and in Osaka. The game mentions he frequented these dens constantly, that he drank all the time because he suffered from a great pain that would never go away. What was that pain? The game never explicitly says, but here's what we know. He was gifted at luring desperate people to join Seitto's cause. He understood desperation intimately. And when Atsu kills him, when she stabs him repeatedly after he's already mortally wounded her, he's laughing the entire time. The snake was broken long before the night of the burning tree. Whatever happened to him in Clan Seitto's fall, whatever he lost, he medicated it with opium and alcohol and laughter that sounded wrong. He was the recruiter because he could spot people as damaged as himself. Then there's the Oni, Lord Hayuzo. The game tells you that all his life he'd known glory as a general, a hero on the mainland. But that was until Clan Seitto lost at the Battle of Nagashino. It was only when he was trapped under his horse, shot by a peasant, finally knowing what it felt like to be powerless and afraid, that the Oni was truly born. This detail matters because it explains his obsession with fire and his brutality. He spent his entire life as a celebrated general, respected and feared, and in one battle he was reduced to a trapped animal being shot by someone beneath his station. The humiliation, the terror, the powerlessness he felt in that moment transformed him into something that needed to inflict that same fear on others. When he burns people alive, when he laughs at their suffering, he's reversing the power dynamic that broke him. He's making sure he never feels powerless again. And remember, this is the man young Atsu scarred when she swiped at his face with her father's katana, breaking his mask and rendering him blind in his left eye. She's the little girl who made the Oni feel powerless again. No wonder he tried so hard to kill her. Now we get to Oyuki, the original Kitsune, and her story is the most complex because she's the one member of the Yotei Six who actually changes. Oyuki was an innkeeper's daughter, but her family were different at night. They became warriors, serving Clan Seitto as knives in the dark, as shinobi, until the clan fell. This is critical. The shinobi techniques, the Nine Tails organization, the entire spy network Seitto uses, all of that came from Oyuki's family traditions passed down through generations. Having lost everything when Clan Seitto was destroyed, Oyuki went north with Seitto and became the Kitsune. None of the Yotei Six except Seitto knew she was a woman. She found the power appealing after losing everything. During her time as Kitsune, training shinobi, she found a young man abandoned by his mother and living off the land. His name was Dojun. Oyuki taught him tricks to protect himself, and he eventually became one of the Nine Tails. Here's where her story intersects with the Night of the Burning Tree in a way that explains everything about her character arc. When Seaitto ordered Oyuki to bring young Atsu to him so he could hang her from the tree like he did her mother, Oyuki refused. She told Atsu to run. She cut her loose. She betrayed Seaitto, knowing full well he might kill her for it. Why? The game suggests it's because Oyuki saw herself in Atsu, or perhaps saw an innocent child about to be murdered for her father's sins and couldn't go through with it. But there's another layer here. Oyuki had already watched Clan Seitto destroy itself through revenge and bitterness and the refusal to let go of the past. She'd watched children starve, watched families fall apart, watched good people become monsters because they couldn't escape the gravity of their own anger. And in that moment, cutting Atsu loose, she tried to break the cycle. It didn't work. Seaitto branded her arm as punishment and forced her to train new shinobi to serve only him. She played along at first, then hatched a plot to use her shinobi against Seaitto. She told Dojun about her plan. Dojun, the boy she'd saved and trained and mentored, betrayed her. Seaitto cast her out and put Dojun in charge of the Nine Tails. So when Oyuki meets Atsu in Tisia Ridge, when she offers to help kill Seaitto and train Atsu in shinobi techniques, she's not just trying to make amends. She's trying to finish what she started the night she cut Atsu loose. She's trying to break the cycle she failed to break before. And here's the tragedy. She succeeds with Atsu. Atsu forgives her, crosses her name off without killing her, moves past pure revenge. But the cycle still claims Jubet in the end. The spider and dragon are the final members of the Yotei Six, and their stories are intertwined in a way that makes their fates almost unbearably sad. The spider's real name was Sakichi, and he wanted to be an actor. Not a warrior, not a warlord, an actor. He wanted attention, art, performance, a life that wasn't defined by his father's war. His father put an end to that dream. The spider spent his entire life wanting the kind of attention his brother received from Seaitto. He was jealous of the dragon, jealous of being the second son, the overlooked one, the failure. The dragon, whose real name the game never provides, was Seaitto's firstborn and a ruthless killer. But he was sick of constantly having to prove himself to his father. The lofty expectations, the pressure, the knowledge that he could never make a mistake or show weakness. He secretly envied the spider because the spider was free of those expectations. Each brother was envious of the other. Each wanted what the other had. And neither of them could escape their father's gravity. When Atsu kills the dragon, when the spider brings his body before Seaitto, the way Seaitto responds tells you everything about their family dynamic. He calls the spider a failure, tells him to lay his brother to rest and go drink himself to death. His favorite child is dead, and he blames the surviving son for not being good enough to prevent it. This is why the spider betrays Seaitto in the end, not because Atsu spares him, not because he has a moral awakening, but because his father abandoned him emotionally the same way Kengo abandoned Seaitto all those years ago. The cycle repeats. Abandonment creates betrayal, creates revenge, creates more abandonment. And it all traces back to one night, one burning tree, one moment when Seaitto decided that making Kengo suffer was worth more than breaking free of the past. Let me tell you exactly what happened that night from every perspective, because the game reveals it in fragments, and most players never piece together the complete sequence of events. It starts with Jubet and Atsu out collecting mushrooms, foraging in the hills like children do. They're confronted by a wolf. A gunshot scares it off. The man who fired that shot is Seaitto. Atsu asks if his blade needs sharpening because their father is a swordsmith. The mention of Kengo's name is music to Seaito's ears. He's found him. After all these years, after building his army and taking over the north, he's finally found the man who betrayed him. Near the home, Jubet offers Seaitto to stay for dinner. Just hearing Seaitto's voice sends shivers up Kengo and Yona's spines. They know who he is. They know what's coming. Yona grabs the children. Kengo tells Seaitto he's not his lord anymore, nor are they friends. Clan Seaitto fell, and Seaitto is nothing but an outlaw now. Seaitto says that Kengo didn't only desert the clan, he convinced others to do the same. Kengo offers his life as payment. He's trying to make a deal, trying to save his family by sacrificing himself. Seaitto tells him he must make an example. This is the moment everything is decided. Seaitto isn't here for justice or even practical revenge. He's here to make Kengo feel what he felt, to take from Kengo what Kengo's desertion took from him. A family, a future, hope. The rest of the Yotei Six arrive. The Oni starts burning their home and beating Kengo. Jubei, watching his father suffer, grabs a katana and says he's the son, so he should protect the family. He runs at the Oni, but he's just a child. The Oni grabs him, chokes him, drags him off. Atsu grabs the sword and swipes at the Oni's face, breaking his mask, scarring him, blinding him in his left eye. Their father tells them to run, to find their mother. The Oni kills Kengo by driving a sword through his back. Meanwhile, Seaitto is stringing up Yona. He's going to hang her from the ginkgo tree. Oyuki grabs Atsu and tells her not to look, tries to take her away before she has to watch her mother die. Seaitto orders Oyuki to bring Atsu to him. He's going to hang her too, make Kengo's last sight before death, the image of his daughter in a noose. But Oyuki knows this is wrong. She tells Atsu to run and cuts her loose, betraying Seaitto. Atsu runs to find Jubet. They find each other, but Atsu tells him their mother is dead, hung from the tree. The dragon and spider catch them. They shoot Jubet, which is why Atsu thought he was dead for 16 years. She's taken back to the homestead and pinned to the ginkgo tree with her father's sword. The Oni sets the tree alight. Seaitto calls her little wolf and says he's sorry it came to this before they leave her to burn. She pulls herself free, injured and alone, and escapes to the mainland with nothing but her father's sword, her mother's shamisen, and a rage that will define the next 16 years of her life. But here's what Atsu didn't know. Here's what the game only reveals if you find the right flashbacks and pay attention to the environmental storytelling. Jubet didn't die. A Matsumi patrol found him and nursed him back to health. It took weeks for him to gain the strength to walk. And then he made a choice that mirrors his father's choice years before. He didn't go back. He couldn't face the homestead, the bodies, the memory of that night. So he joined the Matsumi, built a new life, became a respected samurai, had a daughter, and buried the past so deep he never told Kiku she had an aunt. Atsu went to the mainland and became a weapon fueled by revenge. Jubei went south and became a samurai trying to forget. Both of them were shaped by that night. Both of them were running from it in different directions. And both of them ended up back at that tree anyway because the cycle doesn't let you go. Now let's talk about Jin Sakai, because his story connects to this in a way that most players completely miss. If you explore Oshima Coast thoroughly, you can find a ronin at Castle Matsumi who tells you about Ninetales searching for a special sword that's been lost, a blade with great power. At the base of a mountain shrine, you meet a storyteller named Ugetsu who explains this is the storm blade, said to contain the power of a storm within it. Heading up the mountain, Atsu encounters a fox that looks different from the others on the island. Following it leads to a cavern with a house. This is a lost shinobi den. Inside, Atsu finds an old grappling hook, a stag helmet, and a saddle that looks like it carried its rider through countless battles. These belong to Jin Sakai. Moving through the cavern, she finds it. The sword of Jin Sakai, the blade he used to repel the Mongol invasion of Tsushima 300 years ago. But Ninetales show up immediately, and their leader runs off with the sword. Atsu defeats them and chases the leader into a large open field with white flowers. Inside a house there, she finds adoption papers from when Lord Shimura adopted Jin. She also finds Yuna's knife. If you played Ghost of Tsushima, you know Yuna was the thief who helped Jin fight the Mongols, one of his closest allies. Moving through a door, Atsu comes to a tree and confronts the Ninetales leader. After defeating him and his men, she claims the sword. Approaching a gravestone near the tree, leaves blow away to reveal Jin's ghost mask laid there. This is the final resting place of Jin Sakai. Ugetsu tells Atsu that rumor has it Jin sailed to Izo when the second Mongol invasion hit Tsushima. He came here, to this remote island, and lived out his days in hiding. But here's the detail that connects everything. Later, when heading through caves to fight Dojun the new Kitsune, Atsu finds notes about what Dojun was researching. He'd heard about Jin Sakai and the Mongol invasion. He'd learned about Jin's use of wolfsbane as a poison. He let Lord Seaitto know about it and devoted time and effort to pursuing this power. The notes describe Jin as the first shinobi. The skills Jin learned, the techniques he developed to fight the Mongols as the Ghost of Tsushima, were passed down from generation to generation. The Ninetales, being shinobi themselves, inherited Jin's techniques. This opens up the theory that Oyuki could be a descendant of Jin Sakai, that the shinobi techniques her family passed down came from Jin himself. But there's another theory that's even more interesting. That fox that led Atsu to Jin's resting place, the one that looked different from all the others, might be the spirit of Jin Sakai himself. Throughout Ghost of Tsushima, foxes guide Jin to Inari shrines and act as spiritual messengers. The idea that Jin's spirit takes the form of a fox guiding another ghost, another warrior fighting outside the samurai code, carries a symbolic weight that fits perfectly with the themes of both games. Jin became the ghost to save Tsushima and was considered an outlaw for it. Atsu became the Oriole to avenge her family and was considered an outlaw for it. Both of them fought outside the system. Both of them were hunted by the same forces they were trying to protect. Both of them ended their stories isolated from the world they saved. And here's the devastating part. Jin's techniques, the shinobi methods he developed to fight with honor while being called dishonorable, were corrupted by people like Dojun and Seaitto and turned into tools of oppression and murder. The ghost legacy became the Ninetale's weapon. The cycle continues even across centuries. Now let's talk about the Edo period itself and why it matters to this story. Because the game is set during one of the most transformational eras in Japanese history, and that context makes everything hit harder. The Edo period, also called the Tokugawa period, lasted from 1603 to 1868. The Tokugawa shogunate was established by Ieyasu Tokugawa after the Battle of Sekigahara, which was the largest battle in Japanese feudal history. This is the same battle Atsu fought in as a peasant mercenary on the losing side. The Tokugawa shogunate ruled Japan for 2.5 centuries from Edo Castle in what's now Tokyo. It was an era of relative peace compared to the constant warfare of previous periods, but that peace came at the cost of rigid social hierarchy and isolationism. Japan closed itself off from most foreign influence. Christianity was banned. Trade was restricted. The samurai class became administrators rather than warriors because there were no wars to fight, and in the north, in places like Ezo, this centralized control was weaker. The shogunate was expanding its influence through clans like the Matsumi, building infrastructure, imposing order, trying to bring the wild north under the same control as the south. This is why Lord Seaitto opposes the shogun. Not because he believes in freedom for the people, but because he wants to be the shogun of the north. He wants power for himself, built on the pretense of protecting northern independence. The Matsumi represent modernization, centralization, the shogunate's reach extending into territory that used to govern itself. Seaitto represents the old way, the feudal warlord who rules through strength and fear. And Atsu represents something outside both systems entirely. She's not a samurai because no lord named her one. She's not a soldier because she doesn't serve any clan. She's a ghost, an onryo, something that exists in the cracks between the official power structures. This is why Commander Wada keeps calling her a mercenary and an outlaw. She doesn't fit into the hierarchy the Matsumi are trying to impose. She's chaos in a system that demands order. And here's the thematic weight the game is building. The Edo period was ending in real history, decades after this game takes place, because that rigid isolationism couldn't survive contact with the outside world. The Perry expedition in 1852 would force Japan's ports open. The conflict between tradition and change would lead to civil war. The story Ghost of Yotei tells is a microcosm of that larger transformation. Old powers like Seaitto clinging to the past, new powers like the Matsumi imposing order, and individuals like Atsu caught between them, trying to find purpose in a world that doesn't have a place for them. After her revenge is complete, after Seaitto is dead and Jubet is buried, Atsu doesn't become a samurai. She doesn't join the Matsumi. She goes home with Kiku and Oyuki and builds something new. A family that isn't defined by clans or hierarchies or the cycle of revenge. Which brings us to what this story is actually about. On the surface, Ghost of Yotei is a revenge tale. Woman returns home to kill the people who murdered her family. Simple, clean, satisfying. But the game spends its entire runtime showing you that revenge doesn't work. that it consumes everything it touches, that the cycle perpetuates itself across generations until someone chooses to break it. Look at what revenge did to Seaitto. He was a lord with a family, with friends, with purpose. Kengo's desertion and the fall of his clan consumed him so completely that he murdered his best friend's family, hung a woman from a tree, tried to burn a child alive, and built an army for the sole purpose of becoming powerful enough that no one could abandon him again. And what did it get him? His daughter died in his arms from starvation. His wife killed herself. His sons grew up envious of each other and incapable of escaping his expectations. And in the end, betrayed by the spider and killed by Atsu, he died pinned to the same tree where he pinned that little girl 16 years ago. The revenge he took on Kengo created Atsu. Atsu's revenge on him cost her the brother she just got back. Look at the Oni. He became a monster because he felt powerless once and couldn't let it go. He burned people alive to prove he'd never be powerless again. And he died, beheaded by 2 people he tried to kill as children, proving he was powerless all along. Look at the spider and dragon. They spent their lives competing for their father's approval, envious of each other, unable to communicate or connect. The dragon died because Atsu needed revenge. The spider betrayed his father because his father abandoned him emotionally. And in the end, the spider leaves for the mainland to find out who he is without his father, meaning he wasted his entire life serving a man who never valued him. Even Oyuki, who breaks the cycle by helping Atsu, still carries the weight of what she did that night. She brands her own arm as punishment. She trains Kiku to play shamisen like a form of penance. She visits graves and leaves flowers and tries to build something good out of the ashes of what she helped destroy. The game shows you over and over that revenge is a fire that burns everything, including the person holding the torch. And Atsu almost falls into it completely. Remember when she abandons Jubet during the assault on Castle Matsumi? When the dragon is right there and she chooses killing him over helping her brother save Kiku? That's the moment she becomes exactly what Seaitto was. So consumed by revenge that she sacrifices the people she loves to achieve it. Jubet tells her he doesn't recognize her anymore, that she's a stranger, and he's right. The Onryo spirit, the ghost, the legend, the locals whisper about, it's not Atsu. It's what revenge turned her into. It's the part of her that died on the night of the burning tree and got replaced with pure rage. When she burns the sash with the names of the Yotei Six on it in front of Seaitto, when she tells him she doesn't care about revenge anymore, she's trying to reclaim herself. But it's too late to save Jubei. The cycle claims him anyway because Seaitto can't let go, because he looks at Atsu and sees Kengo, because revenge is the only thing he has left and he'll burn the world down before he releases it. And in the end, Atsu wins the fight but loses her brother. She breaks the cycle but pays the price for every year she spent feeding it. 6 months later, she's raising Kiku with Oyuki, teaching her to forage mushrooms like Jubei taught Atsu, playing shamisen like their mother played, leaving flowers at graves and building a life that isn't defined by the past. The wolf leaves because the hunt is over. The Onryo is gone. Atsu remains. And here's why this story is more devastating than most players realize. Jubei survived the night of the burning tree. He was shot and left for dead, but a Matsumi patrol saved him. For 16 years, Atsu and Jubet were both alive, both on the same island at different times, both shaped by the same trauma, and neither knew the other existed. If Atsu had gone south instead of staying in Osaka, she might have found him. If Jubei had gone back to the homestead even once, he might have found signs she survived. If either of them had let go of the past sooner, they might have had decades together instead of months. But Atsu spent 16 years preparing for revenge. Jubei spent 16 years running from the memory, and by the time they found each other, the cycle was already in motion. Seaitto was already hunting her. The Yotei Six were already dying. The war was already inevitable. They got one conversation by a campfire, one fight defending a bridge together, one moment of reconciliation where they promised each other they weren't alone, and then Seaitto killed him to hurt her the same way he killed her parents to hurt Kengo. 3 generations, same tree, same cycle. The only difference is Atsu broke it after, instead of letting it continue. She forgave Oyuki when she could have killed her. She spared the spider when she could have finished him. She burned the sash when she could have let revenge define her forever. And she took in Kiku, raised her, gave her the family that the burning tree tried to take away. It doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't bring Jubei back. But it means the cycle ends with her instead of passing to Kiku. That's the complete story of Ghost of Yotei. Every meta character, every betrayal, every secret, the game buries in side quests and environmental storytelling. A woman who became a ghost to avenge her family and lost her brother in the process. 6 outlaws who were broken by war and starvation and became monsters to survive. A cycle of revenge that consumed 2 generations and finally ended at the same tree where it began. The game asks you one question through all of this. Is revenge worth what it costs? And it shows you the answer in every name crossed off that sash, in every fight that leaves Atsu bloodied, in every relationship damaged by her single-minded pursuit of vengeance. The answer is no, but by the time you learn that, it's already too late. Jubei is already dead. Seaitto is already pinned to the tree. The Yotei Six are already destroyed. All that's left is picking up the pieces and building something new from the ashes. That's what Atsu does in those final 6 months. She doesn't become a samurai, or join the Matsumi, or let the legend of the Onryo define her. She becomes an aunt, a guardian, a woman trying to give her niece the childhood that was taken from her. She plants flowers on the hills like she did with Jubei when they were children. She plays shamisen like her mother taught her. She leaves offerings at graves and teaches Kiku to map the land and forage mushrooms and survive in a world that's still dangerous. And when the wolf comes one last time, when that spirit that's followed her through the hunt appears, she thanks it and tells it the hunt is over. The wolf leaves, the ghost is gone, only Atsu remains. And if there's hope in this story, it's that. The idea that you can be consumed by revenge, you can become a monster, you can lose everything to the cycle and still come back. Still choose forgiveness over vengeance. Still build a family from the ashes of the one you lost. Still break the cycle even after it's already cost you everything. That's the story most players finish without fully understanding. They see the revenge plot, the satisfying fights, the names crossed off one by one. They miss that every name crossed off cost Atsu a piece of herself. They miss that Jubei's death was the price she paid for abandoning him to kill the dragon. They miss that Seaitto's death didn't bring her peace, it just ended the war. The peace came 6 months later when she finally let go. When she burned the sash and chose Kiku over revenge. When she became Atsu again instead of the Onryo. This is one of the most devastating revenge stories in gaming, because it shows you exactly what revenge costs and makes you watch the protagonist pay it anyway. And the truly tragic part? She had a choice the entire time. She could have let it go after killing the snake. She could have stopped after the Kitsune. She could have walked away after the Oni. Every step deeper into revenge was a choice. And every choice cost her something until the final choice cost her the brother she thought was dead. That's what makes this story complete. Not the satisfying combat or the beautiful world or the names crossed off a sash. It's watching someone feed the cycle until it devours everything she loves, and then watching her finally, desperately, too late, break free of it. Now you know the complete story of Ghost of Yotei. And you understand why it ends with a woman and a child planting flowers on a hill instead of with a warrior standing over her enemies. Because the warrior died with Jubei. Only the person underneath survived. The game lies to you about what it is. It presents itself as a revenge story where you hunt down 6 targets and cross their names off a list. It gives you a sash with their names written in blood. It gives you a ghost mask and a legend that terrifies your enemies. It makes you feel powerful every time you cut down another member of the Yotei Six. But every single training sequence in this game is actually showing you how broken Atsu is and how each weapon master sees through the lie she's telling herself. Start with Hanbei, the dual katana master who lost his arm. When Atsu arrives at Mount Yotei looking for him, she's already killed the snake, but she's wounded, traumatized, barely holding herself together. She asks him to teach her his technique so she can get stronger. And Hanbei immediately calls her out. He tells her she only beat the snake because the snake was drunk and overconfident. That even then, the snake got the better of her before she stabbed him repeatedly out of desperation. He tells her she's only survived this long because she's stubborn, not skilled. He's telling her that revenge isn't making her stronger. It's making her reckless. But here's what the game does that's brilliant. Hanbei agrees to train her anyway because she's the daughter of his old friend. He's honoring Kengo's memory by trying to keep Kengo's daughter alive, even though he knows she's on a suicide mission. The training itself is symbolic. Atsu's right arm is strong from 16 years of wielding her father's sword, but her left arm is weak. She needs to balance them to use dual katanas effectively. The metaphor is obvious once you see it. Her entire life is weighted toward revenge. The right arm, the sword arm, the killing arm, that's overdeveloped. Everything else, relationships, healing, moving forward, that's atrophied. Hanbei makes her cut bamboo with her weak arm over and over until it matches the strength of her dominant arm. He's literally teaching her balance, but she only hears it as a way to kill more efficiently. When she finally masters the technique and defeats the invaders attacking his mountain, Hanbei tries one more time to talk her out of this path. She ignores him. He lets her go because he knows he can't stop her. But he also tells the Matsumi where Seaitto is because he doesn't want Atsu to get herself killed attempting an assassination she's not ready for. Hanbei saves her life by interrupting her revenge, and she resents him for it. Now look at Master Inamoto, the Kusarigama expert in Taisha Ridge. Atsu finds him under attack by the Nintails and helps him fight them off. When she asks him to teach her the Kusarigama, he's reluctant at first, but agrees, just like Hanbei did. During their conversation, he reveals something critical. His grandson joined the Nintails after Inamoto saw anger in him and refused to train him in the Kusarigama. Now his grandson wants to kill him to heal a wound. Inamoto is literally describing Atsu's situation back to her. A young person consumed by anger, seeking a weapon to express that anger, wanting to kill someone to heal a wound that killing cannot heal. And Atsu doesn't see it. She doesn't make the connection. She learns the Kusarigama and moves on. But Inamoto sees it. He sees that she's his grandson, that she's using weapons as a way to process trauma instead of actually processing the trauma. That she's hoping killing the Yotei Six will heal the wound from the burning tree when wounds like that don't heal through violence. Then there's Sensei Takahashi, the Yari master hiding on an island after his rebellion against the Oni failed. He tells Atsu that he used to have a dojo full of students, but they suffered during his rebellion. Some captured, most killed and burned alive by the Oni. His rebellion, his choice to fight back, cost his students their lives. And he agrees to train Atsu anyway. He's another mirror. Another person who chose violence to fight injustice and watched everyone around him pay the price. When Atsu promises to free his former students from the lumberyard where Seaitto is using them for forced labor, Takahashi doesn't celebrate. He doesn't thank her. He just accepts it because he knows those students are already broken, that being freed won't undo what they've experienced. Violence creates more trauma. Revenge creates more victims. And every weapon master in this game knows it. They train Atsu anyway because they're trapped in the same cycle. Because they can't tell her something they didn't learn themselves until it was too late. Because the only thing they can offer is the thing that broke them, skill in violence. Finally, there's Master Yoshida and the Odachi. He tells Atsu that the spider and dragon want him dead because he nearly killed the spider in battle, and they've dedicated themselves to ruining him ever since. His life has been defined by one moment of violence, one swing of his Odachi that created an enemy who won't stop hunting him. Sound familiar? Atsu created the same dynamic the night she scarred the Oni's face. One moment of violence that created an eternal enemy. One wound that never healed and became the foundation for years of conflict. Yoshida is showing Atsu her future if she survives. A life spent running from the enemy she creates, defined entirely by violence, never able to escape the consequences of her revenge. And she still doesn't see it. She thanks him for the training and leaves to kill the spider and dragon. Every master in this game is trying to warn her. Every training sequence is showing her a version of herself that failed to break the cycle. And she interprets all of it as preparation for revenge instead of cautionary tales about what revenge costs. This is the game's genius. It makes you feel powerful while showing you that power is destroying the protagonist. Now let's talk about the wolf, because this is where the game gets spiritual, and most players miss it entirely. The wolf appears at specific moments throughout Atsu's journey. It shows up when she's in danger, when she's making important decisions, when she's at crossroads in her hunt. During the fight with the snake when he shoots Atsu, the wolf intervenes and saves her life. The wolf leads her to Jin Sakai's resting place. The wolf appears at her family homestead multiple times. And at the very end, after Seaitto is dead and Jubet is buried, the wolf comes one final time and Atsu tells it the hunt is over. The wolf leaves. Here's what the game is suggesting through environmental storytelling and Japanese spiritual symbolism. The wolf is not just a companion animal. It's a spiritual manifestation of Atsu's Onryo nature, the vengeance spirit that possessed her after the night of the burning tree. In Japanese folklore, Onryo are vengeful spirits created by people who died with intense rage or sorrow. They can possess the living or manifest as yokai, supernatural creatures. Atsu didn't die that night, but part of her did. The child who played shamisen with her mother and planted flowers with her brother, that person died pinned to the burning tree. What survived was the Onryo, the ghost, the vengeance spirit, and the wolf is its physical manifestation. This is why the locals whisper about the Onryo when Atsu liberates outposts and kills bandits. They're not just talking about her reputation. They're sensing something supernatural about her, something that shouldn't exist, a dead thing walking in the shape of a living woman. This is why the wolf appears during the fight with the snake and saves her when she should have died. The Onryo protects itself because it hasn't completed its purpose yet. This is why the wolf leads her to Jin Sakai's grave. Jin was the first ghost, the first person to become a legend by operating outside the samurai code. The wolf is showing Atsu her spiritual predecessor, the person whose legacy she's inheriting. And this is why the wolf leaves at the end after Atsu tells it the hunt is over. She's released the Onryo. She's let go of the vengeance that kept that part of her alive. The ghost is gone and only Atsu remains. The wolf leaving isn't sad. It's cathartic. It's the moment she stops being haunted by her own rage. But here's the detail that makes this interpretation even stronger. Remember that different-looking fox that led Atsu to Jin's grave? The one that didn't look like the other foxes on the island? Foxes in Japanese spirituality are messengers of Inari, associated with shrines and spiritual guidance. Throughout Ghost of Tsushima, foxes lead Jin to Inari shrines as a game mechanic, but the narrative implication is that they're spiritual guides. If Jin's spirit manifests as a fox, guiding another ghost to his resting place, and Atsu's Onryo manifests as a wolf, the predator rather than the guide, that tells you everything about the difference between them. Jin became the ghost to save Tsushima. His spirit guides others. Atsu became the Onryo to destroy her enemies. Her spirit hunts. Jin made peace with what he became. His spirit is at rest in that grove with the white flowers and the gravestone. Atsu is still fighting her nature, which is why the wolf doesn't rest until she releases it. One more detail about the wolf that the game buries. Wolves in Japanese culture are associated with mountains and protection, but also with hunger and danger. They're liminal creatures, neither fully wild nor fully domestic, existing in the boundary between civilization and wilderness. Atsu exists in the same boundary. Not a samurai because no lord named her one. Not a bandit because she fights for justice. Not Matsumi because she doesn't serve their command. Not Saito's enemy because she's not fighting for the shogunate. She's a wolf, a creature of the boundary. And the wolf companion reflects that. When she finally chooses a side, when she commits to raising Kiku and building a family instead of continuing the hunt, the boundary dissolves. She becomes fully human again. The wolf is no longer needed. Now let's talk about the Matsumi and what they represent, because Commander Wada is more important to this story than he appears. Wada treats Atsu with contempt throughout the entire game. He calls her a mercenary, an outlaw, tells her she's no better than the Yotei Six. Even after she helps defend the bridge, after she fights alongside his men, after she kills the Oni, he barely tolerates her presence. And the game never frames him as wrong. Because he's not wrong. From Wada's perspective, Atsu is a rogue element pursuing a personal vendetta that happens to align with Matsumi interests temporarily. She doesn't follow orders. She doesn't respect the chain of command. She's using the Matsumi as much as they're using her. She's exactly what Seaitto said she was. A warrior the Matsumi don't want because she's not a loyal dog. But here's the complexity the game builds. The Matsumi represent order, centralization, the shogunate's expansion into the north. They're building bridges and infrastructure and imposing the same rigid hierarchy that controls the south. They're progress. But they're also control. Seaitto represents chaos, independence, the old way of warlords ruling through strength. He's fighting against the shogunate's expansion under the pretense of protecting the north. He's freedom. But it's the freedom to be oppressed by him instead of the shogun. Atsu doesn't fit into either system. She's not fighting for the Matsumi's vision of ordered society. She's not fighting for Seaitto's vision of northern independence. She's fighting for personal revenge that she's convinced herself is justice. And the game shows you that all three factions are broken. The Matsumi are so focused on order and loyalty that they refuse to give medicine to dying settlers because soldiers need it more. They execute people for defying Commander Wada. They treat the north as territory to conquer rather than people to protect. Seaitto's forces are raiders and killers who terrorize the population under the pretense of fighting the shogunate. They burn villages, kidnap settlers for forced labor, test poison on prisoners. The freedom they offer is just a different flavor of oppression. And Atsu's revenge quest gets people killed. The prisoners at the Oni's castle who might have lived if she'd walked away. The Matsumi samurai at the bridge who died because the Oni was retaliating against her. And ultimately, Jubet, who died because she dragged him into her war. None of them are right. All of them cause suffering, and the game doesn't give you a clean answer about which system is better. What it does give you is Kiku. Kiku, who wants to learn to fight not for revenge, but for protection. Who steals medicine for a settler's husband, even though it's against the rules. Who arranges flowers and learns shamisen and represents the possibility of something better than the Matsumi's rigid order, or Seaitto's violent chaos, or Atsu's consuming revenge. The next generation. The one that doesn't have to repeat the cycle if the current generation can break it first. This is why the ending focuses on Atsu raising Kiku instead of joining the Matsumi or celebrating Seaitto's death. She's choosing to build the future instead of continuing the past. And here's the devastating beauty of that choice. Atsu didn't get that option. Her childhood ended at the burning tree. She never got to just be a person learning shamisen and planting flowers and growing up in peace. But she can give that to Kiku. She can't undo what happened to her. She can't bring back Jubei or her parents. She can't erase the 16 years she spent becoming a weapon. But she can make sure Kiku doesn't become the same thing. That's what breaking the cycle actually means. Not revenge. Not justice. Not defeating the enemy. Just choosing not to pass the trauma to the next person. Let me tell you what this game is actually about now that you've seen every layer. Ghost of Yotei is about generational trauma and the choice to heal instead of perpetuate. Seaitto's trauma from losing his clan and his daughter created the Yotei Six. The Yotei Six's actions created Atsu's trauma. Atsu's revenge created Jubei's death and nearly created Kiku's trauma. But Atsu stops it. She burns the sash. She forgives Oyuki. She spares the spider. She raises Kiku in peace instead of training her for war. The cycle ends because she chose to absorb the pain instead of passing it on. That's the complete, actual story of Ghost of Yotei. Every revenge plot, every training sequence, every weapon master, every member of the Yotei Six, they're all showing you the same thing from different angles. Trauma creates violence. Violence creates more trauma. The cycle continues until someone chooses to stop it, and that choice costs everything. Atsu loses her brother, her childhood, 16 years of her life, and the person she might have been. But Kiku gets to plant flowers and play shamisen and grow up with an aunt who loves her, instead of growing up alone planning revenge. One person's healing required another person's sacrifice. That's not fair. That's not just. That's not a happy ending. But it's the only way the cycle breaks. And if you're wondering whether the game will get DLC, whether Atsu's story continues, you're missing the point. Her story is over. The hunt is done. The wolf is gone. Any continuation would just restart the cycle. The only DLC that makes thematic sense is exploring someone else's story in this world. Maybe Hanbei losing his arm to Seaitto. Maybe the fall of Clan Seaitto. Maybe Jin Sakai's journey to Izo. But Atsu's arc is complete. She became a ghost. She killed her enemies. She lost her brother. And she chose to raise her niece in peace. Adding more would cheapen that choice. This is one of the most complete, thematically consistent revenge stories in gaming because it shows you that revenge doesn't actually complete anything. It just perpetuates the cycle until someone finally, desperately, at great cost, chooses to stop. Now you understand the complete story of Ghost of Yotei. Not just what happened, but what it means. Not just who died, but why their deaths mattered. Not just the revenge plot on the surface, but the generational trauma underneath. This is a story about a woman who became a monster to kill monsters and then had to choose whether to stay a monster or return to being human. She chose human. The wolf left. The cycle broke, and a little girl gets to grow up planting flowers instead of sharpening swords. That's the ending most players see without understanding. Now you understand. And that's everything.